Okay, so in this video we're going to demonstrate how to go ahead and schedule some conduit for an existing project. Uh, you'll see here we've entered some conduits and equipment for our Grant Lake Trainer project. So let's go ahead and open the or rather the conduit schedule. You notice there are two conduit schedules included by default in the template file. One is the conduit schedule master, the other is the conduit schedule sample sheet view. So the only difference is that the sheet view has some filters entered so that you can control how many conduits are shown per sheet, and then you just copy this one and change those filters as you go. The master conduit schedule is where we'll start it, and you'll see when we open it, it's got all the conduits for the entire project. Um, The most effective way that I've found to schedule conduit is to go ahead and close all of the other views except one 3D view that shows basically all the conduit in the project and the conduit schedule itself. So let's change the settings of this 3D view so that it is a little more usable. Change it to electrical discipline so that it puts everything that's not electrical equipment into an underlay, and then we'll go ahead and turn off the section box. In this project, the only conduits we have are in this small area here, but in a normal project you're going to have conduits that are spread out over the entire site, so that's why I usually turn the section box off. So now as you look at the conduit schedule, you'll notice there are some values that are pre-populated. The first one is the conduit number value, and that one has to be entered. We demonstrated manually. That one has to be entered manually, as we demonstrated last time, as you're going through and doing the model. If you have conduits that don't have a number, you're going to have a blank value here, and you'll have to resolve those before you can continue entering their information. And we'll go through an example of that. But so far, all the conduits that we've placed in the model have been numbered. You can see them all here. This is the definition of their size. This is the type comments that showed up in the type definition. If we just review that real briefly, you click enter type on the conduit. The type comment for the conduit is PVC40, so that's what will be installed in the field. That's why it's important as you're going through and creating your conduit types to make sure that this value, this type comments value is set, because this is what will show up on the schedule and will direct the contractor to install. The other two values here are the service column. I don't remember if we talked about this already, but service is the service voltage, the voltage that's going to be carried within that conduit. This is kind of counterintuitive because Revit considers the service type here. This is a default value, and they pre-populate it with things like fire, power, signal, telecom. We typically think of those things as the system, so the part of the fire system, the comm system. The service is really the voltage, the operating voltage, as far as this schedule is concerned, and the way that we're using the parameters within Revit. Service is really the voltage service. System is, like I mentioned, that's what we usually think of as telecom, power, fiber, SCADA, indication, that sort of thing. And the reason for that is service applies specifically to electrical equipment. System, the way we have it set up here, is going to applies to basically everything that we connect to. So it may be electrical equipment, may be conduit, may be mechanical equipment that we need to highlight in a view. That's why we've expanded the definition of system here. These other values are pretty self-explanatory. We have the start and end apparatus and drawing. Unfortunately, this information from here on has to be entered manually while you're doing the schedule, as well as the cables. There's no way to do this. There's no automated way to do this yet. As we'll see, I've created an Excel macro that can help with the cables portion, but these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fields all have to be entered manually. The easiest way to go about doing it is to have your 3D view open, click on a conduit row in the conduit schedule, and it will highlight all the corresponding conduit in the model. That way you can kind of look at the model and say, okay, C101, we intend for that to be, it's going to be fiber optic. It's part of the it's part of the comm system. It's going from, we called that PB, I don't know, 10 drawing. We don't have a drawing set for it yet, and then it ends at wireway 1. Again, we don't have a drawing. The next thing we need to do is then go through and just continue on, go to the next conduit. That's going to be the same thing. PP10 and wireway 1, and so on. You just continue that process till you've gone through all the conduits. Let's take a minute and we'll look at what can happen when there's a mistake here, where you've got a conduit that maybe has been modeled but hasn't had any information entered for it yet. So let's switch to our plan view. And from there we'll take a look at the section view, and we'll go ahead and we'll throw a conduit in here. We'll use this to simulate you perhaps forgot to number this conduit and it's just hanging there in the system. So we're going to use a GRC. It's 2 inches, that's fine. Then we'll just connect it from that pull box to that wireway. And let's do 2 for good measure. Go ahead and I'll parallel that one out. Give it 4 inches off. There. So now if you, let's change the dimensions of that one. So now if you go back to the conduit schedule, so you've got 2 unnumbered conduits. If you go back to the conduit schedule, you notice there's a blank line. There's 2 blank entries. Within the Revit schedules, blank entries either mean one of 2 things. Either means that you haven't entered the data yet, such as over here in apparatus, we haven't entered that information, or you have conflicting information. So you have 2 conflicting part numbers, or 2 conflicting conduit numbers for the same type of size or type. If the other parameters are otherwise the same, but you have one that conflicts, you'll get a blank value here. So it takes a little bit of effort to determine what exactly is going on. That's why it's helpful to have the 3D view open, so you can just click on that row and see it highlights 2 conduits. So that's an indication that this row is representing these 2 conduits, so we need to number these so that they get separated in the model. And I just skipped over something really useful there. If you click on any row and you click the highlight in model, it will zoom in to those conduits that are referenced in that line. Same with if you go to let's do C102, highlight in model. It'll give you a view that will show that entire run. But for these, let's go ahead and we'll just rename these, or rather give them a number. They don't have a number at all right now. We're up to C102, so let's call this one C103. And we'll break protocol and call this one P103. You'd usually have 2 different boxes, but this is just for the sake of argument. So now you can see that these 2 conduits have been filtered out. C103 and P103 are now both placed in the right location in the schedule. Now you can go ahead and enter the information as needed. The next thing we're going to need to do then is, let's assume that this is our complete conduit schedule and we want to go ahead and start putting sheet views together. So we'll go down here, we'll assume that we'll use this default sheet as our conduit schedule page, and we will bring the conduit schedule sample sheet view. We're going to duplicate that one, and we're going to go enter the properties, and we will filter it. So that we determine what kind of conduits show up on this schedule. By default, this one is set to give us everything between C100 and C150. Let's say we want all the P conduits in the project between P1 and P, say 9999. So that should give us every P conduit that we can imagine. And you can see here it creates a filter for all of those, and then we'll just go ahead and we'll do a rename. We'll call this conduit schedule 1 power conduits. Why not? Close that there. Go ahead and turn off my email so that it's not disturbing the video. So here we have conduit schedule 1, and you just drag it over. By default, if the settings are correct on this, the size should be such that if you just space it 3/8 of an inch off of the edge, you should get, oh, this one isn't set right. Well, it's supposed to be set such that 3/8 of an inch, you have 3/8 of an inch here, 3/8 here, and 3/8 on this side. So while we're at it, let's go ahead and we'll take a look at the definition for this schedule, and we will verify that the columns are set correctly. If you want to know what they should be, what the column sizing should be, in our Revit Electrical Standards folder under Files, Revit Files, there's a Support Files. No, that's not it. It's under the Standards. BIM Standards, there we go. That's what I said. It's under the Revit Electrical Standards. In the BIM Standards folder, there's a PDF of the proper schedule formatting for the conduit schedule. It shows you all the column spaces so that you get an even 3/8 of an inch spacing between the schedule, and if you split the schedule, the second column will have the same spacing, and you'll have this spacing at the other edge of the page. So if we follow these column widths, then the schedule is formatted nicely. So let's take a look at this schedule and see what we're getting. So resize, that one's okay. There we go, that should be 3/4 of an inch. That should be 3/4 of an inch. That one should be, service should be 1 inch. System should be 1 1/4 inch. And I went through and I changed all of this on the template, but it looks like I didn't get to it here in this project. So let's go back to that sheet, and what we'll do is, oh, this should be, it's still not quite right. So go ahead and we'll delete that, and we'll just once you try to replace the schedule, it should create it with a new spacing options. What do we have here? Yeah, that's 3/8. It's not quite 3/8. Let's move that. Then we should have 3/8 here and 3/8 on the other side. Oh. Still not quite right. Well, you get the idea. We can go back and play with it for a while, but okay, I'm curious what's wrong here. 175, 125. That's right. This one should be 5.6. That's right. Don't know. Don't know what happened there, but we can move forward without spending too much time on it. In a production field, in a production drawing, you probably want to make sure that looks nice. Everything is spaced properly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it right now because we have other things to do. Just curious what this is. 3/8. That's 3/8. Yeah, not sure. Okay. So we have the conduit schedule. It's been filtered to filter out all the C conduits. We're just showing P conduits. One thing that you do need to be aware of is you can split and reform this schedule as needed. So you click the split schedule icon. It will split that schedule up, and then you can use this to control how many rows show up in each side. And that's that. So there we go. We've created the conduit schedule. Next up, we'll move on to equipment schedule. But before we do that, let's take a second and go back to our section view. And I just want to show how we go ahead and tag all these. It's really simple, but just for completion's sake. So if we open up our plan view, really any view that has the conduit, you just go to annotate, tag by category, and in properties, helps have the properties window open, tag by category. It's going to place tags for you. And so you can see here that it's placing a tag for each numbered conduit. That section didn't have a number. There we go. For each numbered conduit shows the tag. You can do that in any view, and then as the conduit number, if you have to go about and change the conduit number, the tags will automatically update as necessary. But this makes annotating really quick and painless. And in fact, our CAD management standards document states that if there are tags available for annotating and we use text values instead, then that will be rejected. We'll have to redo it. So that's part of the new standards, to use the tags when they're available. Now if you click on one of the tags, you'll notice that there are a couple of different types. Sometimes you want to just show how long and what type it is. So you've got a tag that shows you the length, the type, and the diameter. This one will also show you the number. In addition to all that, this one will just show you the number. That's our standard tag. And then you could do type and size. If you don't want to deal with the length. Another useful tool for tagging is to just go ahead and select a bunch of conduits, filter them out in your selection, go ahead and annotate and tag all, and here you can select which type of tag you want to place on them. So we're going to use the conduit tag, number only. Within each family of tag, you can pick the specific type that you want to use. In this case, we want to use the number only. We want to give it a leader, horizontally oriented. Hit OK, and then that just automatically creates all the tags for you. You can space them out as needed to get a neat looking production drawing, and there you go. That's all it takes for annotation of your conduits. And of course, in a real world model, you may need to also annotate elevations or coordinates. Those are both possible. You can't do like this is cut mid span on the fitting. You can't do a mid portion. You have to do a straight portion of the conduit. So you can either do the top of the fitting or the bottom of the fitting, but not somewhere within the middle of the fitting. And that pretty much covers it for conduit scheduling and annotation. Next up, we'll be doing equipment scheduling.